Welcome in, everyone. RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here to talk DC United, Washington Spirit. A joyous, I think, pretty joyous evening, late Thursday edition show. And, we had some tech issues. We're still working through some tech issues. John and I can't see each other. I'm working on getting my current location's internet up to speed, but we're working through it, right, John?
It's like we're doing an 18th century podcast. We're in the dark. We have blindfolds, and we're podcasting. So we've done worse. This is the way we used to do it.
Yeah, man. This is back. This is bad. This is going back to the good old days.
Literally, I believe, and this is true. We've been doing this show long enough that like Zoom was not a mainstream product, and we were using like Skype. I think we started with Skype.
Yes.
So that just tells you how long we've been doing this and how old we are, perhaps. Yikes.
Yeah.
I think I've got to count it up. We're getting close to I think we passed the 800 mark. I've got to find out for sure, but I think when we get to 1,000, like they take us out back like old Yeller because we're too old to have podcasts.
Yeah, we should get real jobs at that point.
That's true. That's
real
true.
Jobs. All right. Well, without further adu, John, how are you doing, my friend? How's your week been? How was your weekend? I hope it was
How's
good.
my week been? Yeah, no, week's been good. Been busy at work, I'm sure, like you as well. But last night sort of changed the game, turned my whole head around. I like a lot of other people were like, maybe I'm just going to go to sleep early. Like maybe I'm just going to go to bed. I don't know. This sucks. I'll watch the highlights. But I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. How's your week been? Similarly, last night probably the cherry on top for you as well.
Probably the cherry on top. I've been slowly trying to sort everything in from moving, which was a stressful ordeal. I think the word I describe is that, well, we got it done, and that's the most important part, and that's the part we're going to focus on. But moving's never fun, guys. It's never fun. So,
do you remember back when you used to do it every year when you were young, just to get like the deal? So at least it's not like that anymore.
It's true, but as you get older, you realize you have a lot more stuff, and so like
that's true.
The stuff
and your back hurts.
Well, I feel like when we moved originally from Richmond to Lynchburg, we like made some mistakes because we kind of made some mistakes about how much stuff we have, and we're like we didn't get a big enough U-Haul truck, and we had to scramble to get the other stuff out. We had to kind of move it out slowly. And then, this time I felt like we prepared a little bit, but it was still like, man, it was still stressful. And we were doing obviously a pretty different move.
Yeah.
So, but one more time, I got one more time, and then I'm setting down roots.
Never moving again.
Yeah, never moving again. That's the idea. But let's stick into it. Let's talk DC. People say we talk too much about our personal lives.
I don't care. We've been doing this 800 something episodes. They can take a number,
and the people love it, right? Let's talk. Let's talk DC though. DC United. I guess let's jump right into it, man. What a wild game. Probably I'd say the wildest game I've seen. I don't know, man, since the Rooney Orlando.
Yep, I was gonna say it's that. That's what it is.
Yeah. Where was this game? Where does this game rank for you compared to that one? I'm curious.
I feel like behind that one, because these goals, while both of them amazing and how they occurred, none of them are going to go on a reel that gets played a bazillion times, and like you'll remember where you were when type thing. And it's also very possible that this team doesn't get into the playoffs after all of that. Like this was just like a momentous, like singular win inside of like an envelope, like it's self-contained moment kind of thing.
I will say I agree with you. Like overall, like the big picture, everybody, no one outside of DC fans will talk about this game. Same with the last time they did this, by the way, was 2003. I don't know if that stat's been going around, but the last time DC United tied a game and won a game in stoppage time was against the New England Revolution on the road in 2003. And I have a vivid memory of that game. Like I remember watching that game. I was a big Aleko Eskandarian fan at the time, so him scoring the winning goal was was big for me. Because I watched him in college, and watching him score for DC was special for me. But I'm sure if you ask the general public, they're not going to remember this game. People are going to remember the Rooney goal. I think based on everything that has sort of happened kind of after the Rooney goal and how that moment the moments feel similar for me. That moment for me with that Rooney goal felt like, oh my gosh, we've arrived. We're going to like, this is going to be like a new era in DC United. Everything's going to like be up from here. We've got the stadium. We've got buy-in. We're able to go out and get big DPs. We're able to have big moments like this. Like this is going to be a regular thing. And then it wasn't.
It was a anything is possible moment.
Mm-hmm. Similarly, this feels like, I would admit, a little bit of a turning point. It's like, hey, after, questioning, maybe are we heading in the right direction? We see some good things. This feels like, if things do start to go back, next year, this team makes the playoffs, maybe they win their opening playoff game and then probably lose to Inter Miami. Let's be serious. Congrats to Inter Miami on getting the Supporter Shield.
That they may not get to hold. And
qualifying for the Club World Cup, which was, I'm sure, of the highest, the MLS always intended to put the Supporters Shield winner.
Yeah, they were popping champagne bottles in New York City office. By the way, for those of you who are not terminally online or super MLS heads, the reason I said that they may not get to hold that Supporters Shield trophy is because the Supporters Shield is somewhat of an unofficial trophy and managed through the ISC, which are independent supporters groups that are non-affiliated with the teams, but are are fans of the team, but don't have any support or financial support of the team. The problem there is until this year, all the Inter Miami supporters groups were either team run or team funded and administered. So therefore they couldn't belong to ISC. Is it ISC or ISIC? I think it's ISC.
I think it's ISC, Independent Supporters Council. Mm-hmm.
So apparently one of them since then has broken away from Inter Miami. However, they're still not members. So there's confusion on whether or not they'd actually get the trophy, I guess. It's a bit of it's a very inside baseball thing that only the people of Discord and Twitter probably care about and know about. But I just wanted to give you that little nugget if you're not super online, that's a thing that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Not super important, but yeah, but I would say I agree with you. This was a moment of everything. I'm forgetting all the bad, right? Mm-hmm. I think I said that if after last night, and we'll talk about what I did on Fanatics this morning later, but if the ticket office called me this morning, we're like, what do you think about season tickets for next year? I probably would have put a deposit down. Like it turned everything on its head. And if you look at our questions from before our last show, which was like before, I don't know, like a week and a half now, there were questions like, should Troy Lesesne get fired? Mm-hmm. And then weeks before that, it's like, I think we should get rid of Benteke. I think he's actually bad. He scores goals, but I think he's bad. So like this has been a tumultuous year, and this just was a shot of adrenaline to the heart that makes you think, all right, no, I know this is why we have 800 episodes of this show. It's for moments like this. This is the honey that we get for all the vinegar.
For all the vinegar, we get the honey. But back to my original point, I think if 2025 is like a much improved year, this could be viewed as, when really you felt like things were starting to turn around for this club. Let's get into the game. Let's get into the action. We haven't talked about the Columbus 2-2 game. We'll kind of weave some little analysis in there. I think there's some players who I think have performed well in both games that deserve a mention. But we're going to stick with the Nashville game. We're going to stick with the dramatics of the win. It started out kind of rough, I would say, for DC. Kind of a weird sort of back and forth game. Like I felt like throughout this game, I was like, DC's not playing terribly. They're getting opportunities. They're getting chances. Nashville just put theirs away. They put their 3 away, pretty much with relative ease. Alex Mule, man, this dude just like
doesn't matter what team he's on.
He's the new Will Bruin, and old heads will know what that is. It's like a guy who like just never seems to like do anything with any other team, but as soon as he goes up against DC, Superman. And I think he's from the. Is he from the DC area? Did I hear that correctly? That he
might have been, and then he went to Red Bull and owned us there, and then he went to Nashville and owned us here.
Yeah, so it just loves to dunk on, DC. I'm going to look this up real quick while we look. I'm curious. Oh, he was born in New York City, so
Okay.
He played at Georgetown though, so I think that was the connection.
That's the connection.
That's the connection. So yeah, but loves to punish us. I want to talk a little bit, I guess, about the center. I think despite the fact this being a win, defensively, man, this team just it continues to have breakdowns. I think I feel like everybody's talking about, which one of the players do you keep, which one of the, I think we'll see both McVay and we'll see Bartlett there, but I do think this team needs an upgrade in center back because that first goal was, it was like they were caught ball watching, ball over the top. And I feel like that happens to us so much. And I'm like, Bartlett's good at winning aerials. Like he should be able to jump up and maybe try to win some of those balls or to read that play, but it just feels really slow. Really slow.
I agree. No, I think it'll depend on salary, but one of those two is a rotational player. Mm-hmm. I think Bartlett's the guy you start. Mm-hmm. And I think McVay is, and I think he was even sort of signed to be that. I think he wasn't. I think that was the sort of intention with him. It was sort of like he can play defensive midfield in the pinch. I think there was rumors that he could play outside back in a real pinch, and it became something different. But yes, I agree. If you look at the difference between the goal here, which was like a personal breakdown, and then the goals that occurred in the previous game, where Cucho was just unstoppable, or like quarterbacking passes in behind coverage to get tipped in, like those were not stoppable. Really, this was certainly an avoidable goal to concede early in this game.
Yeah, anytime you have sort of a real kind of just no effort type of goal over the top, completely sidestepping your back line. Yeah, it's not a good look. I think if you listen to Pitch Pass when they were talking, I think Jason Anderson and Roach were kind of talking about what does DC do with the salary. I feel like everybody's being like, okay, we get a number 10 in, we get like an attacker, and I'm saying like, you know what, maybe before I was kind of like, I think you can go out in the market, you can find a good center back. Now I'm kind of the opinion, maybe we do need to use a DP slot on a center back. Maybe we do. Like this team offensively is sitting at 50 goals this season. That's a pretty decent strike rate. That's a strike rate that puts you in the conversation of like the upper echelons, of some of the best, some of the better attacks in the league. Defensively, they're woeful. 66 goals given up at this point. That's bad. That's really bad. And so I'm like, offensively, like you seem like you're fine. You seem like you have it together. We'll get into Click in a little bit. Obviously, I think you still need to find a replacement for him. But I would say your biggest issue, your biggest thing to fill right now is you got to stop leaking goals. You got to stop going down. You don't want to go into games thinking you can come back 3-1 in the last 30 minutes of every game. So, McVay deserves some blame for that. Bartlett, I think, also deserves some blame because he's part of that center back pairing. But yeah, just not a good goal to give up. And I'm like trying to like even recall, like this game has been so nutty. Like I can't even like recall the like second goal this team gave up. But yeah.
I think we should just talk about our goals.
Yeah. Well, DC ties it up. Much more exciting. DC ties it up. Lucas Bartlett kind of off a set piece, won by Benteke. Header kind of loops over, and then he, goes in, heads the ball, puts it in the back of the net. Does a questionable celebration. I understand he was happy, but I'm not. Yeah, go watch the video. I'm not sure if we'll hear. I'm not sure if we'll hear anything from the from the MLS rules.
I doubt it.
Okay,
you never know.
But yeah, I don't have much to say about that goal. It's a wonderful ball from Click, right? It's a set play to Benteke. Yeah, so it's that guy
that you might want to keep. There was a meme today that was shared on the Discord of the amount of goals and assists contributions between Click and Julian Gressel. Mm-hmm. And Click has more and fewer games than Gressel did. So just they play different positions.
Yes,
things are a little bit different. And it was a bit of a shit post, but I do. It is important to realize how impactful he has been. We talked before about how many goals we've scored and what our XG is. He's a major part of that.
Yeah.
So keep him or get rid of him, but you're gonna have to replace what he does if you get rid of him.
Very, very true. And I will add, I think his service on set pieces was good. I think maybe he had a kind of a game. I don't think that, on the ball, when the ball was in play, there were some missed passes. There were some kind of miscommunications. I don't know. I don't think he gets the assist. So I think, the secondary assist, and he maybe had an assist on one of the other goals. I'm trying to remember how everything went, but I don't know. I didn't think he had a stupendous game yesterday. So that's my opinion.
He didn't get the assist on the bar goal. Benteke did.
Okay, yeah.
So more goal contributions for the future Golden Boot winner and maybe MVP.
Benteke, yeah. We can talk about DC going down 3-1. I did want to shout out.
Talk about the play that the defensive that was before the end of the first half that everyone was freaking out about.
Yeah. So you're talking about the yellow card to Bartlett. Is that what we're?
Yes.
All right. So I'm probably gonna get some heat from fans, and I'll explain I'll explain maybe a little bit of my reasoning and where I'm coming from with this call. And maybe explain it better than in a 100 and 200 some character limit on Twitter or on Twitter. I'm not calling it X.
Don't.
But so I'm trying to remember like the exact situation, but I'm pretty sure like the ball kind of like it's kind of a maybe I had my head down, but I'm pretty sure I saw DC like on the ball. And I think it's Schaffelberg and Bartlett are kind of like sizing her up. Schaffelberg kind of bumps into or kind of, basically goes at Bartlett. Bartlett kind of gives him a look. And then, Schaffelberg then kind of runs into him, trying to sort of, again, provoke him and, goes to the ground. It's a flop. It's a dive. The referee makes the wrong call. I think it's clear. Looking at the video, like, if there was VAR for yellow cards, that might have gotten called to the monitor and maybe been ruled a clear and obvious error. My issue, and the referee made the wrong call. And I think it's perfectly fine to say he made the wrong call. You got to stop there because that's going to happen. Referees are referees. I'm just like, I look at Bartlett and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? What do you have to gain by getting into it with a forward? You know what he's trying to do. He's trying to get you to do something stupid. And, he does, engage in that moment, regardless of whether he says I was standing there, he, engages in that moment instead of maybe ignoring it, saying, I'm not going to take this bait. And I think that's the second time I would say where he's had a moment where I'm like, what are you doing, dude? If you're going to go get a yellow card like Herrera stopping a promising attack, get a yellow card, on a hard tackle. Don't get a yellow card on silly and useless things where you have absolutely nothing to gain. And it ends up being the free kick that Hani Mukhtar scores the goal for them to go back up 2-1.
And we don't need to help Hani Mukhtar get goal scoring opportunities against us. No. He will. He doesn't need the help. Bartlett has been suspended a couple times this season, hasn't he? For yes. Both for a red card and then also for yellow card accumulation, I think.
Everybody has on this team.
But that's something we got to talk about too, I think. That's warning. In discipline.
So I thought the announcer said that Bartlett was under yellow card accumulation. I looked at there is one player on there, and that should be maybe sending some alarm bells. But we do have I have some good news in that regard. We'll get to it maybe when we talk about the next game. But Bartlett, the announcer said that Bartlett was on yellow card warnings, and I was like, "Is he?" I was like, and then I looked it up, and I'm like, I don't see him on the like they put out that report where they're like, next yellow, you're suspended. And I don't see him on that list. So I think he's okay for next week. Now he might be, I don't know. We'll see what the report comes out next week. I'm not sure if he's getting close now to where he's on his yellow card, but that whole like sequence in the second half was, I think, like 3 of the 4 attackers picking up yellow cards, which is not great. And, Lisane gets another yellow card. I understand he's passionate, but I think there maybe needs, if there's one thing I want to talk about Lisane and one question I might ask him in a preseason, postseason press conferences, how are you going to figure out how to get fewer yellows? Like, I understand you guys want to play aggressive, but you can't be going into games and picking up 3-4 yellow cards, risking red cards, risking guys suspended. You're going to put yourself in a lot of the same holes that you had last year if you don't figure out a solution to that. So, yeah. All right, give me a. So, let's move on to more positive things. One player on the back line who I actually thought has played pretty well and played well against. I was kind of impressed with how he played against Columbus, and that's been Matty Petzela, who
Yes.
I thought was good in this game. Yes, the team gave up 3 goals. I don't think anything you can look at them and say that they were his fault. He still provided a lot of just great what we've been wanting to see from him for a while, which is great anticipation on defensive reactions, fight, good tackling, a lot of the things.
Great tackling, great tackling, goal saving, retreat backs that only he could make.
Yeah, and I think it shows. I think I keep wondering. The Borussia signing, I'm sure was thought as this is a player we think is good. This is a player we think will be good. I think it was also like we need to put some pressure. I think it's working on another player we'll talk about later too. Kind of the new contract and sort of creating some competition within the lineup, and I think that has pushed Matty Petzela to be a much better player. To know that hey, they brought Borussia and threw him right in, and he had some spotty starts, but even after the red card, they still played him. I thought after Borussina's red card, they were going to just go back to Petzela. But no, they went right back to back to Borussia, and then they shifted over to Matty Petzela. So I thought Matty's looked great these past couple games, against a very, very good Columbus team, and against a mediocre new Nashville team, but on the road.
Bad Nashville team.
Yeah, and two against Columbus too, man. Some of his passes he was making, breaking lines, finding that direct pass. That's the type of stuff that I was like, I need to see that from him, and I haven't seen it.
He may have been good in this game. He was fantastic against Columbus. He was the reason why we got the draw, or one of the reasons why we got the draw. So the problem that he has, that this is not an uncommon problem, is that he has his roster designation overhanging around his neck for like some fans. Mm-hmm. And we know the deal. We know the why. But the expectations are high on him because of that. So it'll be next year when that's not so. Maybe that changes it a little bit. I hesitate to. I think we should have learned now from Peltola, maybe from Gabriel Pirani. We'll talk about that. That we need to give these players a long settle time, mm-hmm. because I think both of you and I are not necessarily seeing it for Enau yet. Particularly with the duration of the contract they gave him, with the position where he sits, considering the moves that will have to be made to accommodate him permanently. But I think that we should learn a lesson here, because Matty is come good. I think he's now turning into the player that he looked like on tape, mm-hmm. When we got him, as opposed to the player at the beginning of this year who was his decision making was decent sometimes, but physically he was getting blown off the ball, and he didn't look ready for this level of play yet. And I think it's changed.
Yeah, I think with every player we've brought in, I can see something, even if it isn't all there. In Borussia, I can see it too. He looks very, very comfortable on the ball. He looks like almost as comfortable, probably second most to Martin Rodriguez as far as being comfortable on the ball. So I think I do see some good things out of Enau. I see why why they're interested in him, which is, I would say it's a pale comparison, a great comparison to when, we would sign guys. I feel like, in the old days of the Casper era, we would sign guys and then immediately you would look at them and be like, this guy's not good enough. Like, what do you see in this player? Like, what do you really think this player is going to bring? Because there were multiple times that was happening for DC. So I think it's positive that I can look at a player and say, yeah, he didn't have a great game, but he did this thing well that I think flashes. Is really good. Yeah, exactly. And I saw it from Petzela in his first game. I was like, wow, this guy looks really good. He struggled a little bit, I think, adjusting to having to play in the middle of July in DC versus Finland was a little bit of an adjustment. So I think we'll see. I have high hopes for him next year, and I think if he plays well and we close out the year, I think it'll be looked at as a reason why this team made the playoffs. So let's talk. I want to talk about another player before we get to the main stars of the show. Ted Kudapietro as well. I thought he was excellent. Again, he has the assist in the Columbus game. Just real. And what I've noticed from him on that goal particularly was he picks the ball up and he just runs downhill. It's like direct. He looks confident. He looks, what we haven't really seen from him this year and kind of been a lost year is that he just hasn't looked like the guy who's going to want to take guys on, or, maybe he just wasn't really coming off. And then in this game against Nashville, my goodness, this guy was playing with some swagger. I saw like a back heel right to Benteke. I saw like a nice little heel flick that almost turned into a chance if it didn't bounce off Herrera's arm. Like just some like real swagger type plays that kind of tell me, hey, maybe Ted's back. And I think it's unfortunate that I think, Pirani's 2 goals probably means against New England, he's going to get the start potentially over Ted Kudu-Pietro.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe you keep exactly as things are. I feel like they had the attacking knob turned up to 11 and they were just downhill the entire game. They had 31 shots in this game to Nashville's 19. I think against, obviously Nashville had us, had 3 goals on us, and certainly gave us some challenges in some ways. But like, if this were a more clinically attacking team, the all out attack for as long as they could play may not have worked out so well. But Ted does really well in that climate where they're just like, hey man, go create, go do stuff. You have less of a defensive responsibility than you might otherwise, because that's not really what you should be concerned about on this team.
I think there's still an argument to be made for him that he could be like, on the more of the left side, kind of like an inverted winger where he has the space maybe to like cut in, maybe find another option. I think there's an opportunity there for him, and then you can place Pirani as a second forward, who's, I think, showing that the guy's not a 10, but maybe there's a second forward. He's now number 2. He's the number 2 leading goal scorer.
So wild.
He has 6 goals this year. 6 goals.
Oh, God.
Wild stuff. But let's obviously DC's down 3-1. I think at that point, there was kind of kitchen sink time. I think in the second half they brought on Pedro Santos. They took off Dominic Baji, brought on Pedro Santos. I think that was kind of sort of the idea was let's get Stroud kind of more up front in the attack. By the way, I will say, I think Jared Stroud, his versatility is starting to show a little bit and sort of being able to play that kind of that wing back role while also being able to switch forward. So
you think he did well at the wing back role? You think that was, it was better than maybe 90 minutes of Santos, but
yeah, maybe 90 minutes of Santos or, 90 minutes of Dahomey. Yeah, I don't know. I have to go back and look. I was kind of focused a lot on the center backs. The team did get beat on transition. That's something they're going to have to figure out. The second goal, I look at the goals they gave up. The first one was ball over the top. To me, that's on the center backs. Second goal is a center back doing something stupid and picking up a cheap, dumb foul. Then Hani Mukhtar blasts a free kick. So that's not on Stroud. And then you look at the goal they gave up was kind of in transition, which they're pushing forward, trying to find the tying goal. And they got beat on transition. And I think when the score was like 3-1, 3-2, I was like, at 3-2, I was like, this game's either going to end 3-3 or it's going to end 4-2 Nashville, because like that was kind of the game it was felt like. And it very nearly did, because Nashville had some like moments. There was shots off the post.
Yep. Us too, though.
Yeah.
I think if every ball that went in the net off the post, it would have been like 8-6.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but subs come in, Santos comes on. I thought Santos played well. I thought like this is the role that I feel like if we could have figured out a way this year to have Santos just be in that role, be that substitute, come in and be like a spot like 30-minute player, I think we would have gotten like a really good player, because he nearly had like just an unbelievable like free kick set piece goal that like would have made it either 3-2 or maybe tied it. I have to go back and look at when that happened, but yeah. And then we of course then have after 3-1 we have Pirani, we have Dahomey come in, and I'm trying to remember the third sub. Merle was the fourth, was like the fifth final sub. I'm trying to remember who the other. It was Pirani, Dahomey, and why can't I think of who the other sub was? I have to go back.
Eno was 67th minute also.
That's right. Eno came in for
Martin.
For Martin. Yep. So Um, uh, let's get to the craziness. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to really say. Like the second goal comes off kind of a little bit of a broken set play, which DC seems, I think it's like the second time they've scored off that ball over the top to, I believe to Mural, who was at subbed in at that point. And Mural kind of like heads the ball forward. I still like, people keep saying Benteke got a touch there. I don't know if Benteke actually gets a touch there. I don't know. I feel like his presence just kind of like, his presence like kind of like just like it's one of those plays where like it goes out, the keeper like tries to go meet Benteke and kind of misses it. I don't know. The goal's still been credited to him, his 22nd goal of the year. The dude is just, scoring. He's probably going to win the Golden Boot now. I'm trying to look at like, he's like what, 3 goals ahead at this point.
Yeah, all the rest of the folks have stopped scoring. All of his competition is chilled out. So
yeah, it's I think Nashville started to, RSL Rongo was like his like top competition, and he's starting to struggle. But 22 goals, 5 assists. I mean, there's nothing more you can say about Benteke. He's a force. He's the best designated player, on the field. We can argue off the field, with like guys like Wayne Rooney. But on the field, I'm, in my opinion, the best designated player this team has signed. And I think that's now full stop.
And that's why he's got an extension.
Yep. Yeah.
He's and any complaints around like lack of versatility of play styles pales in comparison when you have a club in the bag that you can hit the ball 400 yards with. You hit the ball 400 yards and you figure everything else around it, and you don't worry about like, well, why are my long irons not any good? Like why can't I do that really well? Just take the gift that has been given to you and maximize it.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, we are where we are in the table, not because of. It's not because of him, and it's not because of a lack of play styles. It's everything. It's the. Let's talk about that. Why are we here with a player like him? Is it? I would say roster construction is a part of it, indiscipline, and then maybe like lack of like tactical smarts when you have a lead late. I feel like there's been a little bit of that too this season. What do you attribute to why we're fighting for this spot the way we are?
Everything to me comes down. Everything you talked about comes down to roster construction. It comes down to how thin this team is. Like, this team did not have a single win in all of May, and I think one win in May, and then like nothing in June, and then really didn't start picking up wins and start looking really well until they were able to have a window. They were able to bring some reinforcements in. So where you didn't have guys going like, 3 subs going 90 minutes over and over again. Roster construction is the main reason. I think if you look at the start of the season and where this team is now, if you extrapolate kind of that out, over the whole year, that they were able to sort of keep the pace they would, this team would, number one, they'd be in the playoffs by now. They would have qualified. And they would have, they would be, they wouldn't be top 2 or top 3, but they'd be probably 4th, 5th, 6th, maybe 4th. If we're talking high end, 6th, 7th probably would be there where they would be around. And, it really, as good as I'm feeling about Benteke, I always have this dark thought. And I'm not trying to bring down the vibes of how good things feel, but it is kind of, we got Benteke on extension, 100% the right thing to do. If it doesn't go well next year, I'll still say that was the right call at the right time. Hindsight's 2020. Like you can't like, there's nothing here that says like you have a Golden Boot winner. Why would you like look anywhere else? Like if a guy's a Golden Boot winner, but it really just makes me so upset at sort of the previous administration and ownership for how long they kind of they've dragged this out to the point where like this should have been 2022. They signed him like mid-season, July, whatever. I think it was like the summer window of 2022. Team was bad. Team was awful. Things didn't go well. You had the whole taxi situation.
Yep.
The team at that time had already rushed in to sign Wayne Rooney. Man, I would have wondered. I would have been like, you get out of 2022. You have a bad taste. I say, you know what? This is the moment. We're going to completely clear house. We're done. Like we're going to go find Ali McKay, bring him in here now. And then you would have had 2023. Maybe that would have been what 2024 was. And maybe, Benteke has a good year, 14 goals, does a similar production. And then this year would have been the year So
yeah,
it goes.
He wasted it a little bit, maybe.
And this is a year where he's been elite. He would be, if this team was sitting closer to the top of the table, he would be getting MVP votes. He would be like maybe chasing Messi. There would be an argument between him and Messi. Messi probably wins because it's Messi, but so it just goes to show you what happens as an ownership group when you clearly held on too long, the lack of direction, lack of focus this team had for years, and now you finally get that focus. But you've been so weighed down by stuff that's happened in the past. And potentially, I mean, I hope Benteke plays well. I'm not trying to put bad juju out in the air, but if he regresses and this team, is in the same spot, man, you're going to look back at this year and say, what if we had a better squad in 2024 than we have now? Because it feels similar to like the Wayne Rooney window. It's like, man, you just kind of blew a window. Like you have this great moment, but man, like it amounted to nothing basically.
I mean, you'd be dumb to expect another 22 goal season for him next year. You can't expect every year the best year. So like, to your point, boy, wouldn't it have been nice to sync this up with a full roster. Games where we didn't have 14 players, for instance.
Yeah. And
etc.
So again, we'll see. And, maybe he won't need to do that next year because we'll have, Teku de Pietro evolves, Jared Stroud evolves, and suddenly they're contributing 5, 6, 7 goals. Jared Stroud's contributing, 6, 7 goals. Maybe we have a second striker. Maybe Gabriel Pirani is out there contributing, 10 goals and maybe some assists. Maybe there's a new number 10 coming in that kind of like changes the game. So it's not all on Benteke. But that's been a large part of it too, is, it's been Benteke as the only goal scorer. Remember how long we went with like, so it's,
All right, let's talk about this.
Yes.
Let's
John, this is all you, man. You're going to talk Pirani, man.
This is an act of contrition. This is my confession to you. Listen, you got to say that. So what we're talking about here is Pirani comes on in the 70th. What minute did he come on?
It was like
67th minute for Ted. And honestly, even before his goals is dangerous. He is in transition. He's a very talented player. He does make the right pass in transition. He did that to Benteke on a couple opportunities. I think Benteke also probably should have had 3 or 4 tonight. If you look back at the chances that he had. But that is an area of his game that's been good. We should also say that Pirani has performed for the entire year much better as a substitute than a starter. I think that's. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that feels locked in correct. But in this time, what matters most is he got in the right spots after the 90th minute, scores 2 goals. The first one probably more amazing than the second one, but the second one was something I think he would have missed 10 times out of 10 earlier in the season when his confidence was not high, because he had the ball with little pressure. It just kind of had a second there to settle, and he flat foot shot the ball into the corner of the net, which I feel like is easy to miss because you have time to think about it. But he scores both goals, and everyone goes crazy. Jacob Merle celebrates like he has found Jesus on the ground. It's amazing and wonderful. He looks cool in the celebration. He kicks the flag over. I'm really happy for him because he's had a tough year. He's not had an opportunity to speak too much. I don't think he's comfortable necessarily in English. He doesn't really do a lot of interviews. But I still say I gotta take back some of my vitriol about him just never being a player that will be any good for this team. He has certainly found a role right now. He's not a 10 in the way that we want to say that he is, or hope that he would be, or what maybe some people thought he was signed to be. He still struggles to put a 65-minute performance together, but in moments where he is coming in against a tired defense, in moments where he is able to go full bore attack and still has his weapons around him, I think he's an extremely valuable piece. And I think without him, we're not talking about this game in New England with any sort of hope, against New England with any sort of hope.
Yeah.
He's kept the season alive. And as such, I have now purchased a number 10 cherry blossom. Although I've been told by Ted, I didn't realize the fact when I bought it with the old sponsor on the chest. I didn't realize that. But now I have a Pirani jersey. I said I would get one. I got one. I did not. Full disclosure here. I said that if he scored a goal that puts us in the playoffs, that I would buy an authentic jersey of his. And he did not do that yet. I stemmed it off here, hoping that I could appease the gods here by purchasing. But also, do you remember when an authentic jersey was like $120 with numbers? I do. I'm old.
Yeah, I do.
I do not remember it being like $195 for authentic numbers. But either way, I have a jersey. I'm happy for him. I still think, Ted, you mentioned maybe he starts next game. I still hope he doesn't. I think he's your secret weapon here for the next, is it 2 games we have left?
Yeah, 2 game.
Yeah, I just keep doing what was working here, I think.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about it?
I feel like, again, it'll be, I think this will be the 3rd game, and then there's like a week break, and then we have the final week of the season, which is just odd with the placement of the schedule. So
don't worry, we've got the African Cup or whatever in the middle of that too, right?
we do.
Yes, excellent.
Hopefully I hope we don't risk anybody.
Hope.
Or maybe we bring David Schnegg. Maybe David Schnegg can get some minutes and get healthy. Apparently he's close to returning, which I think is very, very good news. Very good news for the team. We'll see how quickly. I was hoping maybe he'd be ready by like this game, because then you would at least have some like hope that he could get kind of maybe somewhat fit and start by the end of the season. And maybe this team makes a run in the playoffs. You never know. But with regards to Pirani, I mean, I think we've talked about it, even though I will say, I was like, I wonder what his FB ref is now, because I remember like the biggest like thing about him was you would look at his numbers compared to like, and it would be like bottom percentile in like shot creating actions. Like the dude was just not finding players in spots. Now he's in the 43rd percentile. That's not elite level, like elite level attacker, but it's better. Like
you can put him out there.
Like, it's like, okay, you're going to get at least some production out of him. And I think that's good. I feel like, I don't know, like if the training staff can turn this guy into like that elite number 10, my goodness, man, like lifetime contract for Troy Lesane at that point, man. Because I mean, it was so bad. But I think he's a second forward. That is Ted Pietro's spot as well. I think what's going to be interesting is, you found a role for him now, but it also competes with another role. And it's sort of, another player who I think he played really well against Nashville. He didn't contribute on the score sheet, which is unfortunate, but he still Ted had one chance where he laid it right off, I believe, to Stroud, and Stroud just couldn't like direct it on target.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's finding moments. He looks really good. I think it'd be really harsh to make a sub. I think maybe you look at the sub if you're worried, you don't want to run Ted Pietro into the ground. His injury status. I think that's the reason you might see Pirani get the start. And Pirani still has some slow starts, but I would say the past couple starts, he's, he looks at least a little more engaged. So we'll see. It's good for him. I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's scoring. I will absolutely 100% eat crow if he ends up being really good. I think it's more going to be interesting to see. I think for me, it's like, you've had this great run of form. Is this a flash in the pan, or is this something sustainable? And I think we'll find out, next year, whether this is actually sustainable or not. So good. And it's good for him. And I'm glad there's now some competition in the lineup. Do we start Ted? Do we start Pirani? He's been good. So all good things.
I just hope this is not a Garib situation where he put three good matches together and we're like, man, I think we've got our center back of the future here. We're set. It's just I don't think that McVay can't even get in the game anymore once he's healthy. so yeah. I have the jersey. That's all I'll say.
Yes,
I have the jersey.
You bought the jersey.
I did. It's purchased.
All right, 4-3 win, wild win. The second goal, both goals came from there. And I also do want to call out, it's been mentioned on a lot of other advice, but like if you watch, like what really gets me, like what really makes me think, like, and this is like what I tell people, you need to watch more when you're watching soccer. That goal is also, I think it's not going to be anything contributed to Christian Benteke. It won't show up on the stat sheet. But on that fourth goal, he kind of creates that because he's there, and they've been told, every team is told Mark Benteke, and he's triple teamed, double teamed. He moves towards the box, and the defense kind of follows, and that opens up the space for Pirani. So just another thing that shows you just, where Benteke is versus like the rest of the squad. and how good he can really be. All right, let's get to some questions. We're going to start always with the Discord. We got a lot of questions. You talk about the someone did ask a question, and I got a whole bunch here. Holy shoot. This is not what I was expecting. But basically someone was asking, like, if we are on track to finish the season with fewer points than we did in 2023, are we pessimistic about the current course? That obviously has changed. Mm-hmm. I think at this point though, I want to iterate, like, 2023 felt like really like hopeless because it just felt like the team was just like rudderless. This team now feels like there's a direction. There's an actual like path forward here. There's different people making the decisions. We're signing different players. We're doing creative things to actually, other than just the usual like suspects of what we do. And we're getting some good players. All right. I'm not going to be able to, some people were in our chat, were going off. The Enclave asked, what's your opinion of Merle so far? Think he'll pull Pirani and get a chance for a breakout / ball out? I think with, John, what are your thoughts on Merle? I'll let you go first. I talk a lot. So.
I think he would have been a player that you really would have wanted to see loan this year, honestly. Mm-hmm. I think if you had Baji at the beginning of the year, you might have been able to do that. I think he's got to build some confidence and put the ball in the net against professionals. And Benteke likes to play as many minutes as possible. So, he's on a multi-year contract, which is great. And maybe he'll get more chances as the seasons go. I still would have liked to see him get more minutes with more first team minutes somewhere else. But that's me. What do you think?
There's some good there. He picks up an assist. He gets credited with the assist today. I think he's shown, when he first arrived on the scene, like he looked really good. And it was like 3 games. Again, you talk about players that have flash in the pan. He had like a period, I think it was like earlier this year, where it was like 2 or 3 games. I think he got a goal. He was looking really sharp, and it was like, man, like what a great pickup DC had on this one. Like we might have like a forward. Excuse me. Sorry. We might have a forward that we could really build something on. And then he kind of faded a little bit, and he fell down. They signed Baji, kind of fell down the pecking order. I think the biggest thing for him is, Ted Kudapietros came in as sort of the second forward. Then it's like, okay, well, then Pirani suddenly also looking like a second forward. You have Baji, who's also a second forward. So you've got sort of 3 or 4 players. 3 players that are kind of over him as far as the second forward goes.
It's almost like he should be loaned out.
Yeah, or DC fires up an MLS Next Pro team and he gets some.
There you go. That'd be great.
Some opportunities, or
that's the best. That is the best outcome. That's the preferable outcome. I don't want him to go play in USL. Really, technically, that's not really what I'm interested in.
Yeah. So.
Keep going these questions. There's a butt ton of them, I think.
Yeah, well, not on the question. People were having a conversation in our Discord about this.
guys, the moderator is going to get into the questions for podcast subreddit. Basically, hey, just questions.
Yes,
and only for us.
Let's talk about this. Tony D on Reddit says, thoughts on persistent Akamboni rumors to Bournemouth. What would you take? A transfer fee, rebuild our defense with more polished, less experienced players? Yeah, it's tough, man.
It is.
Yeah, Premier League comes calling. If they offer like a value, a salary, you get it like a really decent sell on. You also have to look at it from the perspective of the player. It's like,
what does he want?
Yeah, what does he want? Does if the opportunity's there, if the value, the value's fair, I'm sure they've discussed with him like this is the offer we're looking for. If Bournemouth makes this, we're going to accept it. I don't know. I think it's interesting. They keep being persistent with it. We'll see if they get to that valuation. I think DC is going to hold firm on that valuation. And I think, also maybe from Akamboni's perspective, if this dude becomes a locked in starter next year, which I think he can, like, I absolutely think he can. He's looked pretty good over these past, especially weekly. He's growing super fast, like where he's becoming a pretty good starter. It's also from Akam, obviously you want to get to the Premier League. I think what we've seen Fletcher be like, more about like, and I think Fletcher's situation was also unique. We've seen Fletcher be like, I want to get to Europe. I want to do it as fast as possible. I'm not breaking through the lineup. Then you need to send me to Europe. because that was my track before you guys signed me, and you promised me. I'm sure there was something they promised him. After this X amount of time, we're gonna every opportunity that comes to Europe, we're gonna accept it basically. And so I think that's what you're seeing with the Nottingham Forest move. With Akaboni,
it was implied that was the case, but when he was signed, that was always the move.
Yeah. And then Akaboni, though, is maybe different. Maybe he says, hey, I still think there's some room. I think there's still some room for him to grow in MLS. I think there's some room for him to get better. So, yeah.
If I'm him, I'm going.
Yeah.
If I'm him, I'm going. I can always come back. But the history is paved with DC United players who tried to take a step up, tripped on the step, and then came back. It's happened. It's okay. I think if you're young enough and the chance is there, give it a shot. And I think DC United should not be too rigid with that valuation. If they come close and he wants to go, make it happen. And to your point, maybe more of a sell-on clause if things go well. And if they don't, bring him back because he's still a player I think that has a future here either way, even though a year or two older.
Yeah, I mean, and with the fee they're talking about, I mean, you'll be able to take that money and convert it into GAM, which can help you go get players. So, I mean, you are incentivized to sell that player. So I don't know. It's certainly wait and see. Brett Hines says Pirani demonstrating that higher at the field stays, the more productive he is. What is your solution for the KDP Pirani positional overlap dilemma? Both
you talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Here's one. Well, we talked a little bit about Stroud too. Let's go, Brett Hine. You asked a bunch of questions, bro. We appreciate it. But we're gonna select your questions. Thoughts on Click's play down the home stretch? Does it make you more or less open to him coming back as a DP next season? Would bring in an elite DP number 10, make Click expendable as a DP, or allow him to actually shine more by taking the midfield responsibilities off his plate? I think we're all in the same boat. I don't think we want him as a DP next year.
Yeah, I don't think so.
If that means goodbye, then that means goodbye. I think it's worth to sit down with him and say, look, if you want to be here, you want to be a part of this project, we think you're a great player. The salary cap's the salary cap. And, we really want to go out and get a big time player. Here's our offer. It's a less than what you're making right now, but we'll give you, I think it would probably have to come with an extra year, I would say. So maybe you're holding on to a guy longer than what you need to. And maybe he does, he's shown some regression. I think it's not, but maybe maybe you can play him higher up the field. Maybe you can utilize him a little bit differently next year, with sort of some different roster building there. I don't know. I think that's going to be one of the more fascinating things to watch.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to see any movement until later this year. So until the season's over, and maybe that indicates that he's, on his way out. So. All right. I think that really, Brad, you asked a lot of questions, bud, but I think we kind of went over them. And I think that actually kind of does it. Here's one. Stephen White. What out of contract players, if any, do you think DC resigned in the offseason? We've asked this. Sorry. We talked about that so many times.
No, listen, hey, we asked for questions. We appreciate it. We're going to do a lot of rosterbation, I think they call it, after the season's done. So we'll get really into that. Who do we resign? Who needs to stay and go? I think we've got, we're still in it with a shout here. The math is not really in our favor, but we've still got an opportunity. So I think we'll probably stay in the current until then.
The math might not be in our favor, but the opponents, the opponents we play, we have a much easier schedule than a lot of the other teams that are chasing us. I think Philly's got Toronto's got, who's above us right now. Toronto has Miami as their last game of the year. I think they're at 33 games. So they're after Miami, they're done. They're the sort of the odd team out on decision day.
Has Charlotte clinched yet?
Charlotte has clinched. So
that's
clinched.
Good. That's good news.
Yeah. So they'll be fine for position. So I don't get it too twisted there. But
I guess so.
New England appears to be falling apart. They had a little bit of a surge, and now they're just kind of really, really falling apart really badly. Toronto is sinking like a stone. Philly's remaining games are home, away to Columbus, and then home to Cincinnati. So nothing easy there. And those two teams, Cincinnati and Columbus, are both fighting for that second and third spot. Montreal's remaining games are home against Charlotte and away to Charlotte and then home against NYCFC. So again, not really like easy pickings, as they say.
Nope.
So yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like DC has sort of developed kind of the inside track. I think if they win both games, I think they make the playoffs. I think other teams are going to slip up. I think there's going to be some other scenarios where some teams slip up. I think the New England game should be a win. They should go in and win this game. New England are dead in the water. Everybody's unhappy there. You should be able to go in and just off the high, just completely crush that team. Charlotte's going to be more difficult. That's going to be a challenge. And man, dude, we've been here before with Decision Day. And I feel like every year Decision Day always disappoints. So it'd be really nice if we could end Decision Day. I don't think since 2012 have we had like a last day of the season go like exceptionally well. And maybe that was the Columbus game, and that was like the next to last game. But
I will be in the Eagle Bank Club, Eagle, whatever the hell that thing is called for Decision Day. I just realized.
Nice,
hilarious.
Well,
perfect.
Hopefully it's a good game.
Hopefully, the last time I went to Decision Day, it was against Cincinnati when we lost like 5-2 or whatever.
Yeah.
In the same spot, in the same seat too. Boy, man, I don't know about this now. Put the bad juju on it.
Hey, man, we're past the bad juju.
That's true.
All right.
I also don't believe in juju. So,
all right. So that wraps it up for DC. Want to talk Spirit now?
Briefly, yeah, we went a little long. I think the important things to talk about the Spirit here are, well, twofold. They beat Angel City on the road right before it was uncovered that they were doing an Inter Miami and were violating the salary cap. And are getting fined and losing points and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's funny that was going on. Let's see. Angel City docked 3 points. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your. I thought you were moving on. Finish your statement.
No, docked 3 points, fined $200,000 for salary cap violations, and the CEO and general manager have been suspended for the rest of the year, which is hilarious. Entered into 5 side letters directly with players that affected multi-year agreements that were not disclosed to the league. So it seems like they put like, listen, sign for this number, but don't worry. Through DoorDash, we'll give you $40,000 in DoorDash gift cards. So don't worry about it.
Wow. So they now dropped to 19 points. They are now next to last behind the Houston Dash, who just actually finally announced they're firing their coach.
Yeah.
They're parting ways with their coach, which feel like could have happened a long time ago.
What is it with NWSL and mysterious coach resignations or firings? Like, because of the history of all of the problems in this league, you're just like, what is going on? What happened? Yeah. Like, first they were like, it was a medical issue. And then they said it wasn't a medical issue. And it's very, very bizarre. The players appeared to either want him back or want a new coach. So it didn't necessarily seem like a hostile work environment situation, but we don't know that because they don't say. It's just a mystery. Maybe it's HIPAA. Maybe that's why they can't say. Who knows?
But a massive 3 points, I'd say, for the Spirit against Angel City. And I wanted to say, like, with Angel City, it's like what's even more embarrassing is when like you break the rules and then your team is still like not actually good.
For sure, it's the worst part.
It's like you're a mediocre like NWSL team and you find out you broke the rules. It's like what? I think it was the same year. Like
same for Miami.
Miami, they were so bad that year. Like Blaze when Nahar like basically deked Blaze. I think Blaze was it Matuidi, yeah, on the just embarrassing when that happens. But back to the Spirit, I think the biggest part of that news was that the Spirit went out, got a win. Ashley Hatch with a goal, so she's finding her goal scoring form, and they're doing it. They're doing it without Trinity Rodman, who was of course had her back issue. They've said we're not going to play her unless we know she's 100%, and I think that's a smart call. I think this is the big win because I think it stems the tide. It shows, hey, we could still go out and get points and get victories without having our most dynamic and best player. And it helps kind of keep this team sort of alive for that second place spot. 2 games to go. They're 3 points ahead. So tough match ahead. I think the next match is the Orlando Pride.
Orlando. Oh, yeah. Away. Yes, correct. Well, the good thing is that it doesn't really matter, right? You're clinched. You're not going to get first place. Mm-hmm. That's not happening. You're not going to catch him in a you think about sort of what this game could mean. If you were able to go into their house and beat them, it might plant a seed of doubt in their minds about maybe we're not so invincible after all, but maybe it wouldn't. And then maybe who cares? And then maybe you push players that aren't ready to go. I think it's very good that Jonah came out and said that was the case. And they didn't just win without Trinity. They won without Ule Sar again. They won without Casey Kruger. It was a lot of sort of rotational change that happened. It's very big for them to win without Trinity. That's always been sort of the Achilles heel for this team, is that if she's not there, chances aren't getting created. And they were able to make that happen in this game. Aubrey Kingsbury has a wonderful game once again. Let's see, she had 4 saves. Just watching that game, she was why this team kept the 3 points in the second half. I would say the LA had periods of major attack, and they just could not handle it. And Ashley Hatch is proving that it's good that we kept her. We were talking early on in the year, is like, do we trade her? Like, she's not being used in her position, but wouldn't it be great to have the luxury to have her as depth in case someone gets injured? And then, like a monkey's paw, that's exactly what's happened. I think Ule has a back situation. Trinity has a back situation. Backs are notoriously tricky and finicky and hard to be sure. You can rest a back spasm for 2 weeks and think you're great, and then you go try to just, ask me how I know. You go and pull laundry out of the dryer, and then you're like, oh, everything is just as bad as it was. So backs suck. Hopefully that sort of sorts itself out, and they provide the rest. Great for McKenna Morris to get the winning goal. A little chip over the goalkeeper, Didi Hericic. And they hold on late in that second half. So overall, great performance. Hal Hirschfeld is not going to be able to play next game, which is not good. We both DC United and the Spirit having yellow card accumulation parties this year. More than I ever remember saying that phrase in the last 700 episodes, I feel like. But yeah, this game against Orlando is going to be interesting how it plays out. I'm hoping for a competitive match. If they lose and keep it tight, I think that's fine. I don't want to see any players get hurt, and I don't want to risk players before we need to. But I think if you go in there and lose 4-0 or something crazy, that could screw you up for the playoffs. I think that could kind of mess up your confidence and mentality heading into where Orlando is the big dog.
Yeah, and I had in my head there are 4 games left in the year, I believe. So there's still some moments. I'd say I think a draw would be good. I'd be perfectly happy to see this team pick up a point and move on. And then they've got 2 home games against Racing Louisville and Chicago, who are pretty average, and then they close out the year against Carolina. So you could still lose this game, I feel like, and still keep your second place hopes alive. And that's really. The Shield's nice, but man, NWSL trophies, all that matters. And for me, it's like second place is now the goal. Like, get second place, you get your home field advantage for the I guess the 8 teams make the playoffs, right? Is that how many?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 8 teams. So you get your, for the quarterfinals, you get home field, semifinals, you get home field, and then the finals a neutral site. So to me, I'm like, go out there and try to get second place. Don't worry about the Shield. I think if you pick up a point, that's a pretty major win. It keeps you sort of ahead of the fray, and then you can go into your next games and try to close it out. So you got 2 games at home, so 6 points, and I think if this team is still ahead and they win their next 2 home games, they will be perfectly set up.
They're the other leg of this Orlando series. They lost 3-2 due to a penalty kick in the second half. This game is also 5 p.m. on ESPN2, so you get flex to that. The next 3 games are Louisville, Chicago, and North Carolina. And Louisville, they beat their other game this year. Chicago, that was a win in Bridgeview, was a 4-2 win. Mm-hmm. And North Carolina, I think, would have been a loss, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 1-0 loss. So North Carolina continues. I think are you looking at the table by any chance?
Yes, I am.
Where's North Carolina?
5th right now.
Okay. I am, for whatever reason, we match up poorly against North Carolina. It just that is a concern of mine. So if you're still battling for that second place spot, that will be important to see. You're kind of scoreboard watching at that point. You're seeing what Gotham and Kansas City have on their run up. Mm-hmm. But it's a better place to be than DC United, I think.
Much better. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will catch you guys next week, Monday, normal time. We will be here.
Yep.
We promise you. Vamos.
It's true. Vamos.
Thank you for listening to RFK Refugees Podcast. Make sure you rate and review the show wherever you download podcasts. If you want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon or subscribing to our channel on Twitch. Lastly, make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, Twitch, Goals.tv, Friendster, MySpace, and Tumblr. Some of those are even real. Vamos.